In a world where most men are only ever tolerated, managed, or silently corrected, the phrase, "I understand you," strikes like lightning in a quiet sky. It is not simply a sentence, it is a portal, a psychic release, a subtle seduction that speaks not to his ego, but to something far deeper, the boy beneath the man, the ache beneath the armor, the repressed desire to be seen without being diminished. Freud would call this the return of the repressed, an emotional memory reawakened by a symbol. And that symbol is understanding. Every man walks through the world with an invisible hunger, the hunger to be decoded without having to explain. Because explanation, to him, often feels like defeat, a confession of confusion, a betrayal of the masculine role he was conditioned to uphold. But when a woman says, "I understand you," she does something most others never do. She speaks into him rather than at him. She bypasses the conscious layer, the rational, performative self, and touches the unconscious, the wounded, wondering, wordless self. She becomes, in Freudian terms, a mirror for his internal world, not a judge, not a therapist, but a reflection of his silent longings. And that is addictive. To most women, "I understand you" might sound weak, too soft, too passive, but only if you think power lies in dominance. True feminine power is not loud, it is penetrating. It doesn't push, it pulls. When said with calm conviction, "I understand you," carries an erotic quality that is not sexual, but deeply intimate. It signals emotional intelligence, safety, mystery. The man doesn't know why he wants to come closer, he only knows he feels safer around her. Freud knew this as the principle of transference. The woman who offers understanding becomes the object onto which he projects early, unmet needs. If his mother never truly saw him, this phrase becomes a psychic bomb. If his father always dismissed his emotions, this phrase becomes a permission slip to exist, emotionally. To the conscious man, it may register as something small. But the unconscious mind, the real mind, hears something else entirely. You don't have to prove anything. Your silence doesn't scare me. I see the logic behind your distance. Even in your avoidance, I find meaning. What you are really offering is emotional absolution. You free him from the prison of needing to perform masculinity. You let him rest. And ironically, it is in this rest, this permission to stop trying, that his desire to pursue you is reborn. Because he finally feels like a man, not because you demanded it, but because you saw it in him first. Desire does not grow in chaos. It grows in recognition. A man cannot desire what threatens his identity, only what reflects it. When you say, "I understand you," you remove the emotional static. You give him a clean mirror, and that clarity is magnetic. He doesn't want to fix you, explain to you, or defend himself to you. He wants to move toward you not because he has to, but because something in him longs to remain in that rare atmosphere of non-judgment. Freud argued that many adult romantic behaviors are rooted in childhood longing, especially the desire to be understood without needing to ask for it. To say, "I understand you," is to offer a corrective emotional experience, a reparenting of sorts. You become, briefly, the mother he needed, the friend he never had, the lover who finally listens between the lines. This isn't about infantilizing him. It's about speaking to his original self, the one before the masks. You tap into the ID, the unconscious seed of desire, not by tempting it, but by softening it. And when the ID feels safe, it becomes hungry. That hunger often gets projected as attraction. He will want to be near you, not out of lust, but out of limbic safety. He will chase not your body, but the feeling he had in your presence. This phrase works best when he's pulling away emotionally, when he seems misunderstood by others, when he's caught between ambition and burnout, when he reveals something vulnerable and downplays it, or when he's quiet, but clearly heavy. In those moments, don't overcompensate. Don't fill the silence. Just lean in emotionally and say, not as a tactic but as a truth, "I understand you." And then say nothing more. Let him sit in the echo of being seen. Let the desire rise on its own. If said without sincerity, this phrase will fall flat. Worse, it will feel manipulative. The unconscious is not stupid. It recognizes emotional truth. You must mean it. Or at least, you must feel the desire to mean it. True feminine mystique isn't in pretending to be wise. It's in becoming emotionally fluent. In caring enough to decode him, not to fix, not to trap, but to witness. The man who is witnessed without correction will crave the one who did it. He won't know why he keeps thinking of you. He'll replay the moment you said it. He might even feel uncomfortable with how much he wants to be around you. And that's okay. Let him sit in that desire. Let him chase the feeling of being understood. And watch how quickly emotional availability begins to follow. This is not manipulation. It's emotional fluency. It's using the mind, not the mask. And it all begins with 5 words. I understand you. Most men don't realize it, but they are walking around with an unconscious ache, a yearning to be needed in a way that isn't needy. To be important in a woman's life without being used. To be the reason she breathes easier, not the burden she secretly resents. And no phrase awakens that dormant longing quite like, "You make me feel safe," is deceptively soft. On the surface, a compliment. But to the male psyche, especially the one formed by wounds of inadequacy, performance pressure, or maternal detachment, it is a form of anointing. A signal that says, you succeeded where most fail. Not in wealth, not in conquest, but in presence. What most women don't know is that a man doesn't chase only beauty. He chases his own value, reflected in the way a woman responds to him. And when she responds with safety, when her nervous system calms in his presence, he feels powerful in the most intimate, irreplaceable way. Freud spoke often about the tension between the ego and the superego, the self-image versus the internal critic. Men, especially in modern relationships, live under this tension constantly. They are taught to protect, to lead, to be strong, and yet simultaneously told that these instincts are archaic, even toxic. So when a woman looks in the eye and says, "You make me feel safe," she is doing something radical. She is giving his instincts permission. Not approval, permission. There's a difference. Approval says, "You're acceptable because you meet my standards." Permission says, "You are enough because I feel your essence." In this context, safety is not a cage. It's a crown. The man who hears this phrase in sincerity is not being tamed. He is being seen. His protective energy, often dismissed or misunderstood, is being recognized, and not for domination, but for devotion. When a woman says, "You make me feel safe," she is surrendering, but not in weakness. She is offering a kind of psychological intimacy that most men never receive. Most men, even when loved, are respected with suspicion. Women trust them with plans, but not with their vulnerability. They are consulted, but not leaned on. So when you say these words, you are placing a piece of your emotional self in his hands. You are not begging. You are not pretending. You are choosing, and that's what makes it erotic. Men are not wired to chase chaos. They chase clarity. The moment they know they make a woman feel more grounded, more calm, more held, that's the moment they begin to attach. Not to the woman as an object, but to the role they play in her emotional life. And attachment is what precedes commitment. He won't know why he's suddenly more invested. Why your presence lingers after the interaction. Why he feels the urge to reach out, to return, to provide, not with gifts or grand gestures, but with presence, with attention, with effort. It is because you offered him emotional territory, a place where he feels essential. And every man, no matter how distant or avoidant, longs to be essential to someone he respects. Freud believed the ego seeks coherence, a sense that who I am matches how I am seen. So when a woman says, "You make me feel safe," and means it, she gives his ego a resting place. He no longer has to perform. He simply has to be. This is why the phrase must not be thrown around casually. It must not be used manipulatively. The male unconscious is not blind. It picks up false praise like a dog picks up fear. If you do not mean it, if your body, your voice, your eyes do not align, the phrase becomes hollow. Worse, it becomes offensive. A mockery of intimacy. But when you mean it, when your breath slows in his presence, when your voice softens not out of fear, but out of genuine ease, you awaken something almost primal. A protective instinct, yes, but also a romantic one. He begins to imagine himself as a man who matters. Not just a provider, not just a partner, but a presence, a source of calm in a world that demands his hardness. And once a man feels this in your presence, he will start to seek you like shelter. Not for rescue, not for escape, but because his soul remembers the moment it was told, "You are safe to be who you are here." Safety in the emotional realm is the new seduction, is not passivity, is power cloaked in receptivity. It says, "I am strong enough to open." And men, especially those who secretly carry shame, inadequacy, or failure, respond to that kind of openness like moths to flame. They don't talk about it. They won't admit it. But the woman who tells a man, "You make me feel safe," becomes unforgettable. Because in her eyes, he isn't a project. He isn't a paycheck. He isn't a puzzle to be solved or a mistake to be corrected. He is, for that rare moment, enough. And that is what keeps him coming back. So use the phrase wisely. Use it with presence. Use it when your heart is soft, when you stop trying to control the outcome, when you've leaned into trust, not in him, but in yourself, in your ability to recognize something steady, something grounding, something worthy of surrender. Because here's the truth Freud hinted at, though never said directly. A man does not fall in love with your perfection. He falls in love with the way he feels about himself in your presence. And when you say, "You make me feel safe," what he hears deep down is, "You make me feel like home." And every man chases the place he feels he can finally rest. Most men are not praised for who they are tolerated for what they can produce. Their efforts are weighed, their failures noted, their silence misread. But buried under their restraint is a quiet craving, not to be envied, not to be needed, but to be admired. The phrase, "I admire your courage," is not flattery, is invocation. It awakens the archetype of a hero, not the grandiose warrior, but the silent fighter. The man who keeps going when no one is watching. The one who doesn't ask for applause because he never expected it, but still aches for it, somewhere behind his eyes. Freud believed that all desire contains a component of narcissism, the wish to be mirrored, not only as desirable, but as good. When a woman says, "I admire your courage," she gives him that mirror. But more than that, she shows him something he might not even see in himself. Because courage, for most men, is silent. It's not in the fight, it's in the restraint. It's in the way he swallows disappointment, hides fear, carries weight. It's in the quiet sacrifices no one thanks him for. When you tell him you admire that, not his status, not his looks, not his charm, but his courage, you speak directly to the most starved part of him, his unloved strength. The phrase lands differently than "you're strong." It's more specific, more emotional. It suggests that you see through the performance into the principle, that you recognize effort where others only see outcomes. And when a man feels seen at that level, something shifts inside him. He begins to rise, not for you, but in you. You become the place where his masculine essence feels honored, not used, not shamed, honored. And in a world that often tells men to apologize for their masculine energy, to shrink, to question their instincts, being admired by a woman who sees his struggle without mocking it is intoxicating. He might not say it, but he feels it, in his body, in his spine, in the sudden quiet that enters the room after those words. Men fall in love not with the woman who needs them, but with the woman who recognizes them. Admiration, unlike validation, doesn't say, "You did what I wanted." It says, "You are becoming someone I respect." And respect is the foundation of true desire. When you say, "I admire your courage," you are not coddling him. You are not mothering him. You are holding up a mirror to his effort, and that mirror makes him want to deserve your reflection. He will begin to associate your presence with the better version of himself, the part he wants to grow into, the part he wishes the world would recognize, but rarely does. Freud would suggest this touches the ego ideal, the inner image of who he longs to be. Most men walk around exiled from that ideal, buried under guilt, distraction, or exhaustion. But when a woman helps him remember it, even for a second, he feels seen without being exposed. And that is rare, because most men are not used to emotional intimacy that doesn't require vulnerability. But admiration is different. It doesn't pull at him, it draws him. It coaxes out his strength, without demanding a wound. There is no need to tell his story. There's only the need to believe in it. And that's the gift, your belief. When you say, "I admire your courage," you are offering belief, not in his success, but in his soul. Not in his perfection, but in his perseverance. And that kind of admiration is the beginning of emotional loyalty. He might not chase you like he would a fantasy. He will return to you like he would a truth. Over time, this phrase becomes more than a compliment. It becomes a contract. A silent agreement that says, "I see the weight you carry, and I will not belittle it." Men do not want to be fixed. They want to be witnessed. And in witnessing, you make him feel worthy of love that is earned, not demanded. Say it when he's doubting himself. Say it when he takes the high road and says nothing. Say it when he chooses integrity over comfort. Say it when he shows up, not perfectly, but fully. And say it only when you mean it. Because false admiration is worse than silence. It triggers shame. The unconscious knows when a phrase is meant. And if you admire his courage only to manipulate, the bond breaks. He retreats. Not because he's cold, but because his unconscious no longer feels safe. But if you mean it, if your words are backed by presence, stillness, warmth, something rare will happen. He will want to live up to your eyes. Not because you ask him to, but because you believe first. And that is the essence of feminine power in the Freudian sense, to offer the man an image of his best self, and then step back, trusting that he'll find his way there. Not all men will respond to this. Only the ones who still carry honor in their bones. But those are the ones worth awakening. So when you say, "I admire your courage," say it with breath. Say it with stillness. Say it in the moment he least expects to be praised. Because men don't remember the women who wanted them. They remember the women who made them want to become more. And sometimes all it takes is one sentence. There are words that flatter a man. There are words that comfort him. But few words electrify him the way these do. "With you, I feel alive." It's not just a compliment, it's a confession. One that bypasses logic and lands straight in his unconscious, where the desire to be felt rather than just liked quietly burns. Most men do not know what they really want from a woman. They think they want peace, or beauty, or loyalty. But beneath all of it, what they crave, what their unconscious needs, is the feeling of being a catalyst. The sense that his presence does not simply stabilize your life, but sets something ablaze within it. When you say, "With you, I feel alive," you are telling him that he awakens you. And that is the most intoxicating feeling a man can have, to be the reason a woman stops sleepwalking through her own life. Freud would describe this as the return of libido, not in the narrow sexual sense, but as life force. In psychoanalytic terms, libido is the psychic energy of passion, curiosity, motion. And when you say this phrase, you reflect that energy back onto him. You let him see himself as the source of vitality, of fire, of motion. And every man, even the most stoic, longs to be a spark in someone's story. It is not about inflating his ego. It is about inviting his essence. Because most men are so conditioned to perform roles, protector, achiever, provider, that they forget how to simply be inspiring. This phrase gives him that chance. And it does something else, something deeper. It tells him you are emotionally awake, that you have access to your body, your senses, your breath, that you are not frozen in trauma or dulled by routine, that around him, your spirit stretches open. That is powerful, because a man will not fall in love with the woman who needs him. He will fall in love with the woman who comes alive in his presence. Not because he gave her life, but because something in her recognized herself in his eyes. When you say, "With you, I feel alive," you are not saying, "You complete me." You are saying, "You awaken me." And that subtle shift changes everything. One feeds dependence. The other inspires devotion. There's a profound psychological difference between being needed and being felt. Being needed can turn a man into a function. Being felt turns him into a force. And men crave that, especially those who carry shame, repression, or emotional dullness from a life of doing what's expected. You become a portal, a mirror, a moment in time when he remembers what it's like to feel wild, real, alive. It is an emotional high, but with roots. Not a fantasy, but a flash of truth. And here's the secret most women don't know. It's not about being exciting. It's about being present. Because when you are fully in your body, fully in the moment, laughing without control, sighing without shame, moving without needing permission, you radiate a kind of erotic aliveness that has nothing to do with sex. It is existential. And it is rare. Most women are fragmented, checked out, polished on the surface, but emotionally muted. So when a woman enters his world and lets him feel her pulse, not just her touch, but her pulse, he feels like a man again. And when you then name it, when you give it voice by saying, "With you, I feel alive," he begins to associate his very presence with that aliveness. And that is what he chases. Not your beauty, not your body, but the state you accessed around him. Men are not as logical as they pretend. They fall for moments, for feelings they cannot explain, for atmospheres they want to re-enter. And the woman who can make him feel more alive will always have gravity in his mind. This is why the phrase is so effective. It doesn't flatter. It reflects. It doesn't beg. It honors. It doesn't trap. It invites. But like all powerful phrases, it must be real. You must feel it in your cells. You must look him in the eyes and mean it, not because you want something, but because something in you has been reawakened. Say it when you're laughing until your stomach aches. Say it when your guard is down. Say it when you forget to perform. Say it when the world disappears and only the moment remains. He will remember that moment forever. not because of what you said, but because of what he felt while you said it. Freud suggested that the unconscious remembers through emotion. It stores feeling states more deeply than facts. So the next time he thinks of you, he won't recall your exact words. He will remember the feeling of being someone who awakened you. And he will come back to that feeling again and again. Because no man forgets the woman who came alive around him. He might move on. He might rationalize. He might pretend it was nothing. But part of him will always be curious. Was that real? Could I feel that again? Could she? And that's what keeps the chase alive. Not a game, not a tactic, but the unconscious echo of vitality. So don't overuse the phrase. Don't use it to manipulate. Use it to mark the moments that truly matter. Let it be a gift, a declaration, a form of emotional generosity. Say it when it's real. Say it when you feel breathless. Say it when the mask is fallen and all that's left is truth. Because those are the moments he will chase. Not because you asked him to, but because he felt alive too. Of all the phrases a woman can say to a man, none disarms him more quietly or binds him more deeply than this: I trust you. It seems simple. It is not. In a world where most men are distrusted by default, where every action is filtered through suspicion, every silence interpreted as threat, to be trusted by a woman he respects feels like emotional oxygen. Not because it flatters him, but because it calls him into being. Most men live in a kind of psychic exile, emotionally present but unchosen. Trusted with tasks, but not with hearts. Needed but not believed in. So when a woman looks in the eyes, without fear, without manipulation, and says, I trust you, something ancient stirs in him. Freud might say it touches the superego, the moral self. The inner code that drives him to act not just for pleasure, but for meaning. To become someone worthy not of obedience, but of honor. And that's what this phrase does. It places honor in his hands. He is not being asked to perform. He is not being threatened into compliance. He is being trusted. And trust is not just belief in the other, it is vulnerability in the self. When you say, I trust you, you are not claiming certainty. You are offering faith. You are saying, I am choosing to open knowing the risk. I am choosing to believe in what I feel rather than what I fear. And that is power. Because trust, unlike seduction, cannot be faked. It must be felt. And when it is, it becomes magnetic. It does not chase. It does not cling. It holds space. And most men have never known that kind of space. They know control. They know expectation. They know the pressure to perform, the fear of disappointing. But they do not know what it feels like to be met with stillness, with breath, with a woman who says, I trust you, and means it, not because he earned it, but because she chose it. This does something rare. It invites his integrity. It tells him, I believe you are more than your past. I believe you are stronger than your impulses. I believe you are not perfect, and that's why I choose you. To be trusted is to be seen through the lens of potential. Not naive hope, but conscious choice. And when a man is trusted, he rises to the image she holds of him. Not always instantly, not always smoothly, but something in him begins to shift. Because men are not driven by praise. They are driven by perception. And if the woman he desires sees him as trustworthy, even in moments of uncertainty, he begins to internalize that image. He begins to want to become the man she already sees. This is not romantic delusion. It is emotional alchemy. You give him a mirror not of who he is, but of who he could be, if he stayed close to what is good inside him. And when a woman holds that mirror steady, even when he falters, she becomes unforgettable. Because she didn't love his strength. She trusted his will. And that's rarer than love. Freud might call this a reparenting moment, an internal recalibration of worth. Especially for men who were distrusted by their mothers, judged by teachers, or constantly measured against other men. To be trusted without needing to prove anything feels almost unreal. But it is also what makes it sacred. Say it when he is uncertain. Say it when he's doubting himself. Say it not to control the outcome, but to release it. Say it not because you know what he'll do, but because you know who he is, underneath all that noise. I trust you. That phrase, when said with real emotional stillness, turns you from someone he dates into someone he remembers. Because it doesn't seduce. It anchors. It tells him, you are not being watched, you are being believed in. And that belief is what turns a man into a guardian. Not out of guilt, not out of debt, but out of honor. He will begin to see you as something fragile but fierce. Not weak, but willing. And that willingness will draw him not just to your body, but to your soul. It will make him want to protect what you've offered, not because you demanded it, but because you entrusted it. And if he's the right man, the man with something noble still burning in his chest, he will not take that lightly. He will carry your trust like a compass. And even when he's away, even when tempted, even when unsure, he will remember the stillness in your voice when you said it, and it will bring him back, not just to you but to himself. So say it wisely. Say it when it's real. Say it when the world is loud and your heart is still. Because trust is not a tactic. It is a signal, and only the man who feels it will know what to do with it. And if he doesn't, then it wasn't your trust that failed. It was his mirror that shattered. If this resonated with you, even in the quietest part of your heart, consider liking this video. It helps bring these stories to the women who need them most. And if you'd like to keep exploring the invisible language of desire, psychology, and emotional power, subscribe. There's so much more beneath the surface, and we'll go there together.